Sir Jaime Lannister was the eldest son of Lord Tywin Lannister, the younger twin brother of Queen Cersei and the older brother of Tyrion. He was romantically involved with Cersei in a secret incestuous relationship, and though few knew the truth, he was the biological father of her 3 children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, as well as her unborn child. During Robert's rebellion, Jaime earned the infamous title of Kingslayer after betraying and killing King Aerys II Targaryen. Though viewed as dishonorable, his actions prevented the king from setting the capital ablaze. Despite this, he was pardoned by Robert Baratheon and permitted to continue serving in the Kingsguard. After Robert's death, he was named Lord Commander of the Kingsguard under Joffrey. As the War of the Five Kings erupted, Jaime fought for House Lannister but was captured by Robb Stark. Held as a prisoner of war, he eventually negotiated his release when Catelyn Stark sent him back to King's Landing in exchange for the safe return of her daughters. He was placed in the care of Brienne of Tarth for the journey, during which he lost his right hand and, in a moment of vulnerability, revealed the true reason behind his killing Aerys. Upon his return to the capital, he resumed his role as Lord Commander, first serving Joffrey and then Tommen. However, after clashing with the Faith Militant, he was stripped of his position. Jaime was soon appointed commander of the Lannister armies, leading them into battle before ultimately abandoning his post to join the North in their fight against the Army of the Dead. After the White Walkers were defeated, he realized the peril Cersei faced in the capital and chose to remain at her side. During the Battle of King's Landing, Jaime attempted to help Cersei escape the city, but both perished beneath the collapsing Red Keep as the city fell. Jaime Lannister was the eldest son of Lord Tywin Lannister and Joanna Lannister, the twin brother of Cersei. He also had a younger brother, Tyrion, whom he treated with kindness and respect, unlike their father and sister. Their mother died giving birth to Tyrion, which further strained family dynamic. As a child, Jaime struggled with reading due to a letter transposition, but Tywin forced him to practice for hours daily until he mastered the skill, a process Jaime deeply resented. From a young age, Jaime and Cersei engaged in an incestuous relationship. At 16, Jaime was knighted, and at Cersei's urging, joined the Kingsguard to remain close to her in King's Landing. This decision thwarted Tywin's plans to have him marry Lysa Tully and left Tyrion as the heir to Casterly Rock, which enraged Tywin. In response, Tywin resigned his hand of the king and took Cersei back to Casterly Rock. Jaime was inducted into the Kingsguard by King Aerys II Targaryen during the Great Tournament at Harrenhal, becoming the youngest knight to ever join. During Robert's rebellion, Jaime's father Tywin marched to King's Landing, pretending to pledge loyalty to Aerys. Despite Jaime's warnings, Aerys allowed Tywin's forces inside, only for them to sack the city. As the Mad King obsessively repeated his command to burn them all using wildfire, Jaime, sworn to protect him, chose instead to slay him at the foot of the Iron Throne. This act earned him the title of Kingslayer, a name he detested. For years, Jaime refused to explain his actions, but he later confided in Brienne of Tarth that Aerys had ordered him to kill his own father and burn the city to the ground. By killing the Mad King, Jaime saved thousands of lives, though he was condemned without trial by Eddard Stark. Despite breaking his sacred oath, King Robert Baratheon pardoned Jaime and allowed him to remain in the Kingsguard as part of House Lannister's alliance, reinforced by Robert's marriage to Cersei. Renowned for his unmatched swordsmanship and arrogance, Jaime often claimed that only 3 men in the 7 kingdoms could have possibly beaten him in combat. In King's Landing, Jaime reassures his sister and lover Cersei that Jon Arryn's death had silenced any knowledge he may have uncovered about their secret relationship. He reasons that if Arryn had revealed the truth, they would already be dead. Confident in this belief, Jaime accompanies King Robert Baratheon to Winterfell, where Robert intends to name Eddard Stark as the new Hand of the King. After their arrival, Cersei instructs Jaime to locate Tyrion, whom he finds in a brothel. Jaime informs his younger brother that he is expected at the evening feast, and in typical Lannister fashion, sweetens the news with a gift of additional companionship. During the feast, Jaime intercepts Eddard Stark and casually proposes the possibility of them facing each other in a tournament. However, Eddard coldly dismisses the idea, refusing to play at fighting or reveal his true skill. The following day, while Robert and Eddard leave for a hunt, Jaime and Cersei met in a secluded tower for a secret liaison. Unknown to them, young Bran Stark had climbed the tower and inadvertently witnessed their incestuous encounter. Startled by this discovery, Cersei panics and Jaime quickly reaches the boy. After a brief moment of contemplation, he utters the famous words, "The things I do for love," before shoving Bran out the window, ensuring his silence. In the days that follow, as Bran miraculously clings to life, Jaime and Cersei feign concern. Over breakfast, Tyrion notes their tense reactions to Bran's prognosis, prompting Jaime to suggest that it would be mercy if the boy would die, rather than live as a cripple. However, Tyrion, ever the cynic, remarks that he would choose life regardless. Before leaving Winterfell, Jaime encounters Jon Snow and mockingly praises him for joining the Night's Watch, hinting at the harsh reality of the Brotherhood. With the party's royal departure, Jaime returns to King's Landing, where his true struggles begin. Upon arriving at the capital, Jaime remains a subject of judgment, particularly from Eddard Stark when they meet in the throne room. Eddard refuses to validate Jaime's slaying of King Aerys II as an act of justice, instead condemning him for serving loyally until it was convenient to betray the Mad King. The discussion is cut short when a raven delivers news of Bran's survival. Concerned that he may remember what he saw, Cersei expresses fear, but Jaime comforts her. maintaining his usual confidence. Later, while drinking with Robert Baratheon and Sir Barristan Selmy, Jaime is drawn into conversation about past battles. When Robert jests about Jaime's role in killing Aerys, the Kingslayer bitterly recounts the Mad King's final words, "Burn them all." The revelation momentarily silences Robert's mockery as he realizes the extent of Aerys' madness. Meanwhile, Jaime takes his post outside of Robert's chambers as the king indulges in his vices, further fueling Jaime's resentment towards his position. Jaime's disdain for Eddard Stark escalates when the news reaches him that his brother Tyrion had been captured by Catelyn Stark. Enraged, Jaime seeks out Eddard in the streets of King's Landing, knowing full well that killing him would mean his brother's death. Instead, he orders the slaughter of the Stark's guards, personally killing Jory Castle with a blade through his eye. Engaging in a fierce duel with Eddard, Jaime is caught off guard by Stark's skill. The fight is absurdly ended when one of Jaime's men stabs Eddard in the leg, infuriating him. He knocks the soldier unconscious in frustration before leaving, vowing to reclaim his brother. With tensions escalating between the Lannisters and the Starks, Jaime joins his father Tywin's army. Tywin berates him for caring too much about his reputation and dismisses his reluctance to kill Eddard. He entrusts Jaime with 30,000 men and orders him to besiege Riverrun, reminding him that the fate of House Lannister depends on the outcome of the war. Jaime swiftly proves his prowess in battle, securing victories for the Lannisters and pushing deep into Tully territory. However, his overconfidence becomes his downfall. Robb Stark, aiming to distract Tywin's forces, devises a cunning strategy, leading Jaime into a trap at the Battle of Whispering Wood. Outnumbered and surrounded, Jaime is captured by the Stark forces. He offers Robb the chance to settle the war for single combat, knowing he would likely win, but Robb refuses, understanding the stakes. As a prisoner, Jaime remains defiant, mocking Catelyn Stark when she visits him. He cruelly suggests that widowhood suits her and callously admits to pushing Bran from the tower. Though he refuses to explain why when she condemns him for breaking the laws of gods and men, Jaime scoffs, questioning the very existence of divine justice. "There are no men like me, only me," he declares, embodying his ruthless self-confidence even in chains. Though his capture deals a major blow to House Lannister, Jaime remains steadfast, knowing that as long as Cersei holds Sansa and Arya, he is more valuable alive than dead. However, with Eddard Stark's execution, the power of balance shifts, and Jaime's fate hangs in the balance as the war intensifies. Jaime Lannister remained a prisoner in Robb Stark's camp, chained constantly under guard to prevent Lord Tywin from using bribery or threats to secure his release. Despite his captivity, Jaime remains defiant, taunting Robb whenever confronted. However, his arrogance wavers when Robb uses his direwolf Grey Wind to instill fear in him. Meanwhile, Stannis Baratheon publicly exposes Jaime's incestuous relationship with Cersei, declaring Joffrey a bastard and striking his claim to the throne. Jaime in turn dismisses Stannis' motives as self-serving. Months later, Jaime shares his cell with a distant cousin, Alton Lannister. They reminisce about past tournaments and their experiences as squires, with Jaime recalling his time under Sir Barristan Selmy. Seizing the opportunity for escape, Jaime tricks Alton into leaning closer, then brutally kills him by smashing his skull. When a guard, Torrhen Karstark, discovers Alton's convulsing body, Jaime takes advantage of the distraction, strangling the guard to death and stealing his keys. However, his escape is short-lived, and he is soon recaptured. With Jaime back in captivity, Richard Karstark demands his execution for the murder of his son, but Catelyn persuades him to wait until Robb returns. Concerned that Karstark's patience may wear thin, Catelyn visits Jaime in his cell alongside her trusted guard, Brienne of Tarth. She accuses him of lacking honor, but Jaime counters by arguing that a knight's vows often contradict one another. He further provokes Catelyn by revealing that Cersei is the only woman he has ever been with, drawing a painful contrast to her husband Eddard Stark's infidelity with Jon Snow's unknown mother. Realizing that Jaime's death is inevitable if he remains a prisoner, Catelyn secretly releases him, assigning Brienne the task of escorting him to King's Landing for an exchange that could secure the release of her daughters. Brienne sneaks Jaime out on horseback, later taking a rowboat to avoid detection. Along the way, Jaime mocks her appearance and strength, attempting to provoke her into a fight, but she remains steadfast in her mission. As they continue their journey, they come across 3 women hanged for consorting with Lannister soldiers. While Brienne insists on burying them, a group of Stark soldiers arrives and recognizes Jaime. Without hesitation, Brienne slays all 3, proving her formidable combat skills. Jaime is both impressed and surprised by her willingness to kill Stark men, but Brienne reaffirms her loyalty not to House Stark but to Lady Catelyn and the duty she was given. Jaime Lannister's journey to King's Landing alongside Brienne of Tarth is fraught with danger, starting from when they're spotted by a traveler. Jaime insists that Brienne should kill the man to prevent him from revealing their location, but she refuses. The duo faces another challenge when they need to cross a river. Brienne opts for the safer bridge route, but Jaime, always looking for an advantage, manages to distract her long enough to snatch her spare sword and free himself. This leads to a fierce duel between them on the bridge. Despite being one of the most skilled swordsmen in Westeros, Jaime is weakened by his time in captivity. Brienne, using both strength and endurance, gradually wears him down. Just as Jaime collapses in exhaustion, riders from House Bolton, led by Locke, arrive and capture them. Now prisoners of the Boltons, Jaime and Brienne are bound together and taken on a journey while their captors sing The Bear and the Maiden Fair. Jaime warns Brienne that she is in grave danger, and the soldiers will likely attempt to assault her. He advises her to submit, knowing that any resistance could lead to her death. However, Brienne refuses, saying she will fight to the end. That night, when Locke's men drag Brienne away to be assaulted, Jaime intervenes, using his wit instead of his sword. He convinces Locke that Brienne is a noblewoman, the heir to House Darth, and that her father would pay a ransom in sapphires for her safe return. Locke, tempted by the prospect of wealth, calls off the attack and ties her up again. Jaime then attempts to use his family name as leverage, offering Locke riches in exchange for his release. Growing tired of Jaime's arrogance, Locke decides to teach him a brutal lesson. Under the pretense of offering him food, Locke's men unite Jaime and pin him down on a tree stump. In a shocking moment of cruelty, Locke mocks Jaime's reliance on his father before hacking off his right hand, the very hand that made him a legendary warrior. For a moment, Jaime stares in disbelief before screaming in agony. Jaime, feverish and weakened by his injury, is further tormented by his captor. As they march, they hang his severed hand around his neck as a grotesque trophy. When he collapses into the mud, they mock him, even forcing him to drink horse urine. In a final act of defiance, Jaime attempts to fight back, seizing a sword and trying to wield it with his left hand, but he is too weak, barely able to stand, and is quickly subdued. Locke warns that another escape attempt will cost him his remaining hand. Later that night, as he refuses food and sinks into despair, Brienne challenges him. She reminds him that he once saved her from being violated, and she questions why he did it. Jaime remains silent. Frustrated, she tells him that for the first time he is experiencing true loss, something most people live with daily. Her words strike a nerve, and Jaime, recognizing his own weakness, finally starts eating. Upon arriving at Harrenhal, Roose Bolton expresses anger at Locke for maiming Jaime, as Tywin Lannister is a dangerous man to cross. When Jaime inquires about Cersei, Roose cruelly strings him along, making it seem as if she perished in Stannis Baratheon's seas. However, he eventually reveals that she is alive, leaving Jaime overwhelmed with relief. His wound is treated by Qyburn, a former maester notorious for his unethical experiments. When Qyburn suggests amputating more of his arm to prevent infection, Jaime refuses, enduring the painful treatment without sedation. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Jaime later shares the truth behind his infamous title Kingslayer with Brienne. While bathing in Harrenhal's hot springs, he reveals that King Aerys II had ordered him to kill his own father and to burn all of King's Landing with wildfire. To prevent this atrocity, Jaime took matters into his own hands and killed the Mad King. However, when Ned Stark arrived to find Jaime standing over Aerys' corpse, he judged him as a traitor without even asking why. As Jaime collapses from weakness, Brienne catches him, and for the first time he insists that his name is not Kingslayer, it's Jaime. Roose Bolton eventually allows Jaime to return to King's Landing, but Brienne is ordered to stay behind. Jaime protests, but Roose refuses to release her, citing treason charges. As Jaime departs, he jokingly tells Roose to send his regards to Robb Stark, a dark foreshadowing of the massacre that awaits at the Red Wedding. On the journey back, Qyburn treats Jaime's wound and discusses his past. Jaime learns that Brienne's father had attempted to ransom her with 300 gold dragons, but Locke, believing House Tarth was vastly wealthier, refused the offer. Realizing that he indirectly caused Locke to overestimate Brienne's value, Jaime senses she is in grave danger. He orders her escort, Steelshanks, to turn back to Harrenhal, using his father's wrath as leverage. Back at Harrenhal, Jaime finds Brienne trapped in a fighting pit, forced to battle a bear with nothing but a wooden sword. Without hesitation, he leaps into the pit to defend her, forcing Steelshank's men to intervene. With their help, Jaime and Brienne barely escape. Confronting Locke one more time, Jaime reminds him that Roose Bolton would prefer him alive and unharmed. This time, Locke relents, and the two depart together. At long last, Jaime arrives at King's Landing, accompanied by Brienne and Qyburn. As he steps through the gates, a commoner dismisses him as just another traveler, unaware of the trials he had endured. He heads straight for Cersei, walking into her chambers as she idly admires a seashell. When she turns to face him, her expression betrays shock at the first sight of his missing hand. Jaime Lannister, the once great warrior, had returned home, but he's no longer the same man who had left. Jaime Lannister received a Valyrian steel sword from his father, Tywin, forged from the Stark family blade Ice. Tywin expresses pride in the Lannisters finally possessing their own Valyrian weapons, revealing that he had enough steel to craft 2 swords. He then urges Jaime to leave the Kingsguard and return to Castle Rock to rule in his place. Jaime, however, refuses, determined to stay in King's Landing to protect the king and secretly maintain his relationship with Cersei. Rejecting any notion of honor, he insists that he will live by his own desires. Tywin, angered, declares Jaime no longer a Lannister, but allows him to keep the sword, noting that a one-handed man without a family needs all the help he can get. Qyburn fits Jaime with a golden prosthetic hand, a gift from Cersei. However, she remains distant, blaming him for leaving after his capture by Robb Stark's forces. When Jaime tries to rekindle their relationship, she coldly rebuffs him, saying he took too long to return. As Joffrey's wedding approaches, Jaime warns the arrogant young king that the war is not over, while Stannis remains a threat. Meanwhile, Brienne reminds Jaime of his oath to protect Sansa Stark, but he argues that with her family dead, nowhere is safer than King's Landing. Eventually, he decides to uphold his vows, secretly giving Brienne his sword, now named Oathkeeper, and a squire, Podrick Payne, to aid her in finding and protecting Sansa. Jaime, unable to wield a sword effectively with his left hand, turns to Bronn for training. Their sparring sessions prove both humbling and beneficial, as Bronn teaches Jaime to fight dirty. At Joffrey's wedding feast, Jaime had a tense conversation with Loras Tyrell about Cersei. Their exchange is cut short when Joffrey is poisoned. Jaime rushes to his dying son's side, helpless as he watches him perish. At Joffrey's funeral, Jaime finds Cersei alone with their son's body. She demands that Tyrion and Sansa be killed for the murder, refusing to consider Tyrion's innocence. Jaime tries to comfort her, but this frustration erupts when she pulls away. Overcome with anger and desire, he forces himself on her despite her protests, engaging in rough, emotional sleeping with her beside their dead son. As Tyrion stands trial, Jaime grows frustrated with the obvious bias against him. He offers Tywin a bargain. He will leave the Kingsguard and become heir to Castle Rock if Tyrion is spared. Tywin agrees, planning to send Tyrion to the Night's Watch. However, when Shae falsely testifies against Tyrion, he snaps and demands a trial by combat, shattering Jaime's hopes of saving him through diplomacy. Jaime secretly helps Tyrion escape, leading him to a passage where Varys await. Before parting, the brothers share a final embrace, uncertain if they'll ever see each other again. Unknown to Jaime, Tyrion makes a detour, killing Tywin before fleeing the city, forever altering the Lannisters' family. In the turbulent wake of Tywin Lannister's death, Jaime Lannister finds himself grappling with grief and guilt in Season 5 of Game of Thrones. During their father's funeral in the Great Sept of Baelor, Jaime stands beside Cersei, his twin sister and lover, as mourners pay their respect. He cautions her that Tywin's demise has left House Lannister vulnerable, their enemies poised to strip away the power and influence their father had amassed. Cersei, however, turns her venom on Jaime, blaming him for their father's murder by freeing Tyrion, the true killer in her eyes. Left alone with Tywin's body, Jaime stares at the court, the weight of his choices pressing heavily upon him. The threat to their family escalates when Cersei summons Jaime to examine a sinister gift from Dorne, a carved viper clutching Myrcella Lannister's pendant in its jaws, a clear warning from House Martell. Cersei rallies at Jaime for his failure to publicly acknowledge their children, a hypocrisy he counters by noting the deadly consequences of such an admission. Determined to protect their daughter Myrcella, Jaime vows to retrieve her from Dorne. When Cersei mocks his ability to do so with one hand, he retorts that he won't be going alone. To bolster his mission, Jaime visits Castle Stokeworth and recruits Bronn, the sellsword, by revealing Cersei's scheme to wed Lily Stokeworth to another man, Willis Bracken. Jaime sweetens the deal with promises of a finer bride and a grander castle upon their return, securing Bronn's allegiance. On their voyage to Dorne, Bronn probes Jaime's motives, questioning why he's personally undertaking this rescue instead of dispatching an army. Jaime insists he wishes to avoid war, but Bronn's knowing remarks hint at his awareness of Myrcella's true parentage. The conversation turns to Tyrion, with Jaime claiming Varys orchestrated his brother's escape. Bronn asks Jaime to pass on his regards if he encounters Tyrion, only for Jaime to vow vengeance, promising to kill their sibling for Tywin's death. In Dorne, danger strikes swiftly. Bronn saves Jaime from a venomous snake, but their presence is soon detected by Dornish soldiers. A skirmish erupts, and Jaime, wielding his sword left-handed, faces an opponent. Disarmed, he cleverly catches a blade with a golden hand, using the moment to reclaim his weapon and dispatch the soldier. Against Bronn's objections, Jaime insists on burying the bodies to avoid raising alarms, unaware that Eliara Sand and her sand snakes are already tracking his movements, intent on using Myrcella to spark a war. Disguised as Dornish guards, Jaime and Bronn infiltrate the Water Gardens, finding Myrcella with her betrothed Trystane Martell. As Jaime urges her to flee, the Sand Snakes attack, aiming to kill her as vengeance for Oberyn Martell's death. Jaime battles Obara Sand, while Bronn holds his own, but the clash ends when Ero Hota, Doran Martell's formidable captain, intervenes with guards, arresting all involved. In a cell-like room, Myrcella visits Jaime, rejecting his pleas to return to King's Landing and declaring her intent to stay and marry Trystane, leaving Jaime isolated once again. Escorted by Ero Hota to meet Prince Doran, Jaime faces the ruler alongside Eliara, Trystane, and Myrcella. Noting Myrcella's revealing Dornish attire, Jaime awkwardly suggests she might be cold, a concern she brushes off. When Doran questions Jaime's covert mission, he cites the Viper threat as justification. Doran, seeking peace, proposes maintaining Myrcella's engagement to Trystane, who will join the small council in Oberyn's stead. Jaime agrees, relieved to avoid bloodshed. While Myrcella beams at staying with her love, Later, Eliara visits Jaime, feigning reconciliation but subtly taunting him with the knowledge of his incestuous bond with Cersei, a jab at his Lannister shame. The journey home begins with farewells to the Martells. Aboard his ship, Jaime opens up to Myrcella about love's complexities, hinting at their true connection. She confesses she knows he's her father and embraces him warmly, only to collapse moments later, poisoned by Eliara's farewell kiss. As Myrcella dies in his arms, Jaime's triumph turns to tragedy, his mission ending in a devastating loss. Jaime Lannister returns from Dorne bearing the tragic burden of Myrcella's body, his daughter lost to treachery. In Cersei's chambers, he offered solace as their grief intertwines with memories of their mother's death. Cersei confides in him about a chilling prophecy from her childhood, spoken by the witch Maggie, foretelling the demise of all of her children. Jaime dismisses it as superstition, insisting that only their bond matters, and vowing to reclaim all that their enemies have taken. Knowing Doran Martell was innocent of Myrcella's murder, Jaime pens a letter to the Dornish prince, demanding justice against Eliara Sand and her Sand Snake. The ultimatum backfires, sparking Eliara's coup, which claims the lives of Doran and his son Trystane. At Myrcella's funeral in the Sept of Baelor, Jaime confronts the High Sparrow, the leader of the Faith Militant, whose influence had begun to choke King's Landing. Later, mourning alongside Tommen, Jaime learns the boy suspects Cersei's hand in Trystane's death, a suspicion deepened by her absence, barred by the High Sparrow's decree. Jaime reassures Tommen that he'll shield Cersei from the Sparrow's grasp, pressing the young king to visit his mother. As Tommen grapples with his inadequacy as ruler, the High Sparrow interrupts and Jaime sends Tommen away. Enraged by the cleric's hold over Cersei, Jaime nearly strikes him down, but relents when surrounded by armed zealots. The High Sparrow gloats, claiming dominion over the Seven Kingdoms, stoking Jaime's fury. Jaime and Cersei flank the towering Gregor Clegane, visit Qyburn's shadowy laboratory. Cersei tasks the disgraced maester with turning Varys' spies to her cause, while Jaime questions Qyburn's work on Clegane, earning a menacing glare from the mountain. The trio then storms a small council meeting, demanding action against the Sparrows and Eliara's Dornish uprising. Kevan Lannister and Helaena Tyrell rebuff Cersei, but Jaime, as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, stands his ground. The council, unnerved by Gregor's presence, departs in protest. Later, learning of the High Sparrow's plan to force Margaery into a walk of atonement, Cersei and Jaime rally the council again. This time, they forge a pact. Jaime persuades Kevan to hold Lannister forces back while the Tyrell army marches to free Margaery and Loras, though Kevan warns of the bloodshed a civil war could unleash. Jaime joins Mace Tyrell and his army at King's Landing's gates, riding to the Great Sept to challenge the faith. As the High Sparrow preaches to the masses, the Tyrell forces array before the Sept, poised for a battle. Yet, in a stunning twist, the High Sparrow announces Margaery's release, revealing a new alliance between the Crown and the Faith. Tommen emerges, flanked by the Kingsguard, leaving Jaime stunned and seething as he glares at the triumphant cleric. After this failure, Tommen strips Jaime of his Kingsguard title and orders him to leave an army to Riverrun, recently seized by Brynden the Blackfish Tully. Furious at the High Sparrow's sway over Tommen, Jaime vents to Cersei, threatening to storm the Sept with brawn and sellswords. Cersei, confident in Gregor's prowess for their trial, urges Jaime to retake Riverrun instead. With a parting kiss, she reminds him of their foes that have always underestimated them. Jaime arrives at Riverrun with Bronn and 8,000 Lannister troops, finding House Frey's siege faltering. Witnessing Lothar Frey and Black Walder River's empty threats to execute Edmure Tully, Jaime mocks their incompetence. To assert dominance, he strikes Black Walder with his armored hand, drawing blood, and takes command. Ordering Edmure cleaned and fed, Jaime requests a parley with the Blackfish, signaling his intent to resolve the standoff with cunning rather than carnage. Jaime and Cersei strategize in King's Landing, but he highlights their dwindling allies and doubts her grip on power. He tries to broach Tommen's suicide, only for her to dismiss their son as a traitor. She hints at allying with Euron Greyjoy, who soon arrives proposing marriage. Jaime, recalling Euron's role in the Greyjoy Rebellion and the Lannisport sack, bristles at the idea, although he's glad when Cersei rejects it, citing distrust. At a Reach Lords gathering, Jaime pushes Randyll Tarly to abandon Helaena, now Daenerys' ally. Alone with Randyll after mistaking his son Dickon for Rickard, Jaime stresses Randyll's influence over the Reach, warning of Dothraki raid. When honor holds Randyll back, Jaime tempts him with Warden of the South if they defeat Daenerys. Euron later parades captives Yara, Eliara, Tyrene before Cersei, who names him naval commander and promises marriage post-war. Jaime snarks that the crowd would cheer Euron's head on a spike just as easily. Euron retorts by probing Cersei's bedroom taste, nearly sparking a brawl before laughing it off. That night, dining alone, Jaime disrobed by Cersei. Morning brings his servant's knock. Jaime panics about being seen in her bed, but Cersei, defiant as queen, answers. The servant announces an Iron Bank envoy, spotting Jaime before leaving. Cersei smirks as his worry shifts to a grin. Leading the Lannister Tarly forces with Bronn and the Tarlys, Jaime storms Highgarden. After the Tyrell garrison fails, he finds Helaena in her study, commending her troops' valor. She admits war wasn't their forte. As he pours wine, she assumes his army guarded Casterly Rock. Jaime reveals it's a worthless feint, its doors gone, Euron's fleet crushing the unsullied ships, stranding them. He credits Robb Stark, leaving Helaena musing, while Tywin never took Highgarden when the rock's gold dried up. Half joking, she'll ask him soon. Helaena guesses Jaime might use Widow's Wail on her, cursing Joffrey's cruelty. She boasts protecting her family, unrepentant, but calls Cersei worse. Jaime shrugs. Some fear her, but order matters more. She warns Cersei's a plague that'll doom him. He brushes it off, though she insists her dying wisdom's apt for his life. When Helaena asks her fate, Jaime recounts Cersei's gruesome ideas, whipping, flaying, but others like painless poison instead, tipping it into her wine. She drinks, then recalls Joffrey's agonizing death, admitting the Strangler's mess was unplanned. Stunned, Jaime learns she framed Tyrion, sparking a lethal chain. Oberyn, Tywin, Myrcella, gleeful, she demands he tells Cersei, and he exits in fury as she dies. Post-sack, Jaime oversees Highgarden's gold hauled to King's Landing, tossing Bronn a coin sack. Bronn grips it's not the castle and wife he was promised, suggesting Highgarden. Jaime counters it's temporary and tough to hold, urging him to take the gold and run. On the Gold Road, Randall urges haste, crossing the Blackwater Rush to shield their grain wagons. Jaime agrees but rejects flogging string, citing that they're Highgarden grit. Meeting Dickon, he asked about battle. Dickon wavers from glory to guilt over killing Tyrell allies. Jaime blames Helena's Daenerys pact, easing him, though Bronn teases Dickon's corpse. Nearing the Blackwater, thunder reveals a Dothraki horde. Jaime and Randall rally their line. Bronn begs him to flee, but Jaime stands firm, believing they can hold. Then Drogon roars in with Daenerys, torching a line through Jaime's ranks. Dothraki swarm the gap, encircling them. Jaime and Randall bolster their spear wall against the Dothraki charge. Seasoned Lannister infantry and Tarly archers match the lighter foes blow for blow. The tide shifts as numbers overwhelm them. Daenerys' second strafing run raises swaths of men to ash or molten armor. Jaime regroups archers to target Daenerys, hoping to end the war. She dodges and Drogon incinerates them. Surrounded, Jaime cuts through Dothraki. Dickon saves him from a sneak attack. Bronn hits Drogon with a scorpion bolt, grounding him, but Dragonfire wrecks it. Daenerys dismounts to aid Drogon. Seeing her vulnerable, Jaime charges with the spear. Tyrion, watching afar, curses his folly. Dragon's Flame nearly takes Jaime, but Bronn tackles him into the river. Weighted by armor, Jaime sinks. Bronn hauls him out, scolding his recklessness. Facing Daenerys' dragon might, Jaime dreads telling Cersei. Back in King's Landing, Jaime warns Cersei their loss spells doom, revealing Olenna's Joffrey kill. She rages at his mercy, vowing to fight on with the Iron Bank gold, dismissing Surrender's death. Bronn lures Jaime to the Red Keep steps, where Tyrion awaits. Despite tension, Jaime listens. Daenerys seeks a truce to face the White Walkers. He tells Cersei, who consents, then drops she's pregnant with his child, naming him father. They embrace. Before the summit, Jaime and Bronn eyed the Unsullied and Dothraki outside the city. Jaime ponders their sexless drive. Bronn shrugs as the united foes signal danger. At the Dragon Pit, Jaime joins Cersei parley with Daenerys and Jon. He locks eyes with Brienne, averting when Cersei notices. Euron mocks Tyrion. Jaime snaps at him. A white stuns him, and Daenerys cites 100,000 dead. Cersei storms out over Jon's Daenerys' oath. Brienne begs Jaime to sway her, but he fails, wishing Tyrion luck. Cersei yields, and Jaime rallies troops north, until she admits it's a lie, planning to let Jon and Daenerys bleed, then strike with Euron's Golden Company. Furious at her deceit, and Tyrion plot claims. He argues either the dead or the vengeful alliance will crush them. She ignores. He vows to go north. Sir Gregor bars him, hinting execution, but Cersei alludes to their unborn child. Disgusted, Jaime dares her to order his death. She hesitates. He calls her bluff, leaving her shaken. Ditching Lannister gear, he rides north solo, giving his gold hand as snow falls, marking winter's arrival. Jaime Lannister, leaving King's Landing behind, rides north to Winterfell, driven by a flicker of honor amidst his tarnished past. Upon arriving, he ties his horse near the castle and lowers his hood, scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. His gaze locks with that of a young man in a wheelchair, Bran Stark, whom he hasn't seen since the fateful day he pushed him from the tower window. Bran's expression is calm, almost serene, yet his eyes pierce with a quiet, knowing intensity. Jaime freezes, the weight of recognition crashing over him like a wave. Taken before Daenerys Targaryen, Jaime exposes Cersei's deception. Her promise to send Lannister forces against against the White Walkers was a lie. Brienne of Tarth, steadfast and honorable, vouches for his character, sparing him from execution and earning him a place in the fight against the dead. Later, in a pivotal moment, Jaime seeks out Bran to atone for his past cruelty. Bran, devoid of bitterness, accepts the apology with an otherworldly detachment. As the eve of the battle looms, Jaime joins a fireside gathering, where amidst a drinking game, his knights Brienne, fulfilling her dream despite her protest that women cannot be knights. In the chaos of the Battle of Winterfell, Jaime stands shoulder to shoulder with Stark and Targaryen forces, repelling the relentless White. When the tide turns against them, he retreats and the survivors into the castle's depths, witnessing the Night King's demise and the end of the undead threat. Victory brings celebration, and Jaime shares a tender, fleeting intimacy with Brienne. Their moment is interrupted by Bronn, sent by Cersei to assassinate her brothers. Wielding a crossbow and a promise of Riverrun, Bronn hesitates, swayed by Daenerys' odds. Tyrion counters with an offer of Highgarden, though Jaime bristles, calling Bronn a cutthroat. With a wry jab and the Lannister lineage, Bronn accepts the deal, sparing them for future lordship. Yet peace is short-lived. News of the Iron Fleet ambushing Daenerys' forces reaches Jaime, igniting dread for Cersei's fate. Despite Bran's tearful pleas to stay, he resolves to return to King's Landing, unable to abandon his twin. His clandestine return falters when besieging forces capture him. Tyrion orchestrates his escape, urging Jaime to convince Cersei to surrender and flee to Pentos with her unborn child. Disguised as a refugee, Jaime slips into a war-torn city, only to face Euron Greyjoy barring his path to the Red Keep. In a brutal clash, Jaime slays Euron, but suffers grievous wounds, his strength waning with every step. Reaching the war room, he finds Cersei, her composure fraying as the city burns. He persuades her to escape, but their flight is cut short. Drogon's fiery rampage seals the Red Keep's cellars with rubble. Trapped, Cersei clings to Jaime, pleading for their child's life. With a quiet resolve, Jaime assures her that only they matter now. They embrace as the ceiling collapses, the Lannister twins perishing together beneath the weight of their choices. In the aftermath, Tyrion sifts through the Red Keep's ruins, spotting Jaime's golden hand amid the debris. Uncovering their bodies, he finds them entwined in death as they were in life, an end to their bond. Brienne, honoring Jaime's complex legacy, pens his final entry in the Book of Brothers. She chronicles his noble deeds, knighting her fighting the dead, and concludes with the bittersweet truth: he died protecting his queen. Thus, Jaime Lannister's tale closes, not as the reviled Kingslayer, but as a man who in his final act chose love over redemption, sealing his fate in the ashes of King's Landing.